gospel. Number two, the exclusivity of the gospel. Would you please note verse 1 again? Paul, a bondservant of Christ Jesus, called as an apostle, set apart for the gospel of God. Not a gospel, as though there are many gospels, as though there are many roads to heaven, as though maybe there's a gospel for Jews, maybe a different gospel for Gentiles, maybe there was a gospel for the Old Testament, maybe a different gospel for the New Testament. No, there is only one gospel, and it is the only way of salvation. To refuse this gospel is to refuse the only means of grace. To reject this gospel is to remain under the wrath of God. Jesus Himself said, "I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me." He has an exclusive monopoly on access to the Father and into the kingdom of heaven. Peter said before the Sanhedrin, there is salvation in no other name. I've done a word study on this. You know what it means? There is salvation in no other name. Listen, we're not just dogmatic about this, we're bulldogmatic about this. There is salvation in no other name. No one else ever hung upon a cross and bore my sins and carried them far away. No one else was ever laid in a grave and came up on the third day for my justification. No one else has ever been seated at the right hand of God the Father, and that one has all authority in heaven and earth. No one else, if we call upon that name, will He bestow saving grace. Paul says there is one God and one mediator between God and man. The man Christ Jesus, who gave Himself a ransom for all, the testimony born at the proper time. No, this speaks to the exclusivity of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so therefore, as we preach as expositors, we preach with authority, we preach with boldness, we preach knowing that this is the only way of salvation. The gospel of God. Verse 9 says, the gospel of His Son. Verse 15 says, I am eager to preach the gospel to you. Verse 16 says, for I am not ashamed of the gospel. Paul believed this so deeply in his soul that to the Galatians, he would write in Galatians 1 verse 8, but even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to what we have preached to you, he is to be accursed, anathema, damned, and go to hell before you bring others with you into the fiery pit below. Verse 9, as we have said before, so I say again now. In other words, if you didn't get it the first time, let me tell you this one more time, Paul says. As we have said before, so I say again now, if any man is preaching to you a gospel contrary to what you received, he is to be accursed. This is why we must go and preach this one saving gospel, because there is no other gospel. Romans 10, verse 14.